morning, everybody. We're talking baseball. And who are we talking with? Regulars, Mickey Callaway, former Mets manager, among other things, and now our chief baseball analyst on the network. Good morning, mate.
Good morning. How's everything going today, guys? I'm excited to talk a little baseball this morning.
Yeah, I always love having you on there, Skip. You give me more maneuverability that guys like me look better because you know the insights of this stuff better than anybody I know. And we have Eric Katz, the guy who, in my opinion, is going to continue doing great things as we go along, and a fixture on this show as well as 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Anyways, theme of today's show is the Dodgers get it right internationally. I'll tell you, you want to talk about international baseball exploding. Yep. It goes back to Shohei Ohtani. We all know that Ichiro Suzuki over the years has done well with Japanese. And how do you not mention him? But we talk about Ichiro Suzuki on Tuesday nights, so we'll keep the focus on these other guys. But Ichiro's unbelievable too. And I also had an opportunity on Thursday night to talk to Barry Bloom, the legendary sports writer, and we talked a lot about Ichiro. So, but today's focus will be on the Dodger players at hand. With that said, without further delay, Shohei Ohtani is a founding member of two 50-50 clubs, home runs to strikeouts as a pitcher, 2025 season, and home runs to stolen bases in 2024 season. Skip. That's pretty good accomplishment, isn't
it? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Obviously Shohei's a generational talent, probably going to go down as one of the best players to ever play this game ever, especially doing it both ways, which is it's just a extremely tough thing to do. And I think he's going to, add on to that those 50-50 clubs as we move along here. So, I got to know Shohei a little bit in 2020 when I was his pitching coach, and what an unbelievable just person, work ethic. He just goes out there every day and tries to be the best he can be, and it pays off for him.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, obviously you're the Angels, because I think you were under Joe Madden. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what that interaction was like working with Shohei. I mean, did you have to go through his interpreter a little bit, or how was that? I know he had an interpreter, but what was it like working with Shohei first time like he did?
It was amazing. First of all, I always compared it to, if anybody's seen Rocky IV, when Ivan Drago is training, he's kind of the Ivan Drago of baseball. He has all of the latest stuff to monitor him, getting the best he can possibly be. His work ethic is off the charts. And, his interpreter was always around with us, but he spoke, good enough English where we could really communicate about baseball. Anywhere I've ever been, Korea, Mexico, Venezuela, a lot of times you don't need an interpreter because baseball is kind of an international language, right? We just kind of, and you want to keep it simple for the players. So as a coach, that language barrier has never really been a big issue, but Shohei, incredible talent, obviously, and just incredible work ethic. So it was great to see the way he went about his business on a daily basis.
Good morning, Rob. New York MLB Talk. Great show last night. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fireworks with myself and Anthony Savino, Rob, and of course Chris. Do a good job on that show. Those guys come on Mondays and Wednesdays, and of course every now and then some of our guys will slip over to their Friday show, which is fine. So it was a lot of fun last night. Definitely a lot of fireworks. Anthony Savino, believe it or not, will probably have an opportunity to come on once in a while on Wednesday night on the Sports Exchange. It's just a matter of working them into the rotation with some of the other regulars can. All right, with that said, Eric, go ahead. Some thoughts about what we've seen with the 50-50 club. A lot more to go with Shohei, and then there's a lot more international flavor.
Well, yeah, I mean, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, Ichiro kind of walked so Ohtani can run. But Ohtani is like, one of those is like a rare breed of player. I don't think baseball's ever seen any player like him because he can pitch at a high level when healthy, and he can also he can also hit. And then last year he showed he's got some speed on the base paths as well whenever he feels like it. But yeah, he's one of those players like when it's all said and done will go down as one of the greatest of all time because he's got the type of talent where he can do whatever he wants on a baseball field. It's like he's playing a whole different game.
Yeah, he sure is. Good morning, Joshua Dora. Glad to have you on the show today. Sorry, let's continue the Shohei Ohtani thing because he told Japanese media he's been having internal conversations with the organization about possibly playing the outfield in order to be used in release. Yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that that would be a good way for them to go if they don't feel he can, sustain starting pitching and all the soreness and the training that goes with that. You can throw him in the bullpen and get some meaningful innings out of him and put him out there in the outfield so he can come into the game at some point. But I kind of like it, as long as he's able to stay healthy. If I was running the Dodgers organization, the one thing I'd want to do is make sure that Shohei stays healthy, right? You got to have him out there producing. And, just to try and get him to go two ways doesn't necessarily benefit your team if he's going to end up getting hurt. So, they got to do anything they can to try and keep him healthy. When we had him with the Angels, that was our main goal, that we were always trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to keep Shohei productive, keep him on the field and keep him healthy and let him, really show what he can do, and both in the outfield, at the plate, and hitting. And it's a tough task. So I think the solution was initially, let's just make him a DH, let him go out there and hit, and then let him pitch on occasion. But the thing you're missing is he's a really good outfielder. I mean, the guy can fly. He's going to run down balls. He obviously has a great arm. He's going to be able to throw guys out. It's just a challenge to get him, to keep him healthy doing all of those things. So I think relieving might be a good answer, and we'll see what happens when they make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, Skip, I'm really intrigued by it because then the guy's already warmed up a little bit, out there. You don't have to warm up his legs and all that. So you're in the outfield, so all you're doing is jogging from the outfield all the way to the pitcher's mound rather than just getting him in there cold. So that's the thing that when I thought of this, I was like, well, kind of intrigues me a little, but I'm with you all the way on everything else. You got to make sure you protect this guy because I believe that, let's face the reality, Dave Roberts says you can't afford to have anything happen to this guy because losing him is like losing two players. Eric, continue on.
I mean, I know he played outfield a little bit in Japan, but he could easily do it because he has the arm to make it happen. But you gotta really limit. You gotta really keep track of what he's doing though, because he's doing things that really trying to do three things at once. And guys in baseball, the average player can barely do one thing at once. And it's a very difficult task because you lose that guy in the postseason, it could be trouble because, Ohtani is one of a kind. Obviously, he's seriously gifted, probably the most gifted athlete baseball has ever seen, arguably. And it's going to be a challenge. I mean, I wouldn't start him because he's literally just come back to pitching. You're throwing him into an environment he's never pitched in before. Yes, he's pitched in the WBC, but this is postseason. It's a little bit different than the WBC. And, I think the best solution is, you either A, kind of just play him like you've been playing him at designated hitter, or B, you put him in the outfield, but I'm not sure if you want to keep him out there all game long because the outfield has some wear and tear on the body too, because you're trying to run down balls. You gotta protect yourself against that, against the wall. And Ohtani hasn't played it at the big league level. So it's really just a matter of, you can play him there, but I'm not sure you want to go the whole game there. So, it's very difficult. And also you got to talk to Ohtani and see how he feels because, ultimately the player is going to have the final say on what he wants to do. And it's just, it's a very interesting problem.
Yeah, and let me tell you this. On next week's show, I'm going to go into some of his pitching stats in terms of miles per hour and some of those other stuff. I didn't want to do that today because I wanted to focus on the 50-50 thing. Skip is what I decided to go in this particular situation. Believe me, there were other numbers I could talk about, the velocity and all that. But yeah, there's that delicate line. All right, Skip, I want to go back to you on this, okay? And that's this. You talk about losing two players at once. I want to make sure Eric got his thought while it was fresh. That to me is huge, especially as you go into the postseason. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the Dodgers last night clinched their 13th straight berth into the postseason. Remarkable job by Dave Roberts in that organization. We all know about Clayton Kershaw's final home game last night. Ends it with a strikeout. And we'll talk more about that on Monday's show. But let's talk about the two players' themes, Skip. I mean, you're really running a fine line as a manager about what you're able to do, knowing now the important baseball's ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. First of all, great job by the Dodgers. They've been going in a really good direction, like you said, for the last 13 years to get into the playoffs. Dave has done a great job with this team. It seems like they always go out there pretty relaxed and play baseball the way they should. It's really hard to go in there to Chavez Ravine and play games, right? It's just a different atmosphere there. You go in and and it seems like the home field advantage there, for whatever reason, seems really great. It's hard to win ball games in their ballpark. But yeah, it's a challenge, right? You have to set everything up for the postseason, and the postseason is what matters the most. You know for the last 13 years you're going to make it. You want to win this World Series, and it almost, now that they're in that mode where they're going to the postseason every year, expectations are super high, and expectations there, kind of like with the New York Yankees, are to win a World Series. It's win a World Series or bust. And you've had and if you don't, then it seems like your season didn't go very well. So he's got a lot of things on his plate. They got to really line everything up going into the postseason. The Shohei thing, that's going to be big decision. Like, I'm sure they're sitting in meetings trying to figure out rosters and trying to figure out how we're going to utilize this guy. How are we going to get Shohei in the game if in relief? How's he going to warm up if he's in the outfield to come in to relieve? Because you really just you can't just jog straight in. You're going to have to have like probably send him into the batting cages on the inside under the tunnel and let him warm up in between innings when he's not out there in the field. So, and is his spot in the order coming up when you want to use him? You got to figure all this stuff out and be strategic about it. So it's going to be, it's going to be tough, and in a playoff atmosphere, I'm sure, you've got 1,000 things you're thinking about already, and to get that lined up will be tough. But if they can do it and pick the right spots, I think the good thing about Shohei is, you probably use him anywhere from the 6th to the 9th. And maybe you can pick out an inning where it's like, okay, he's not up to bat. Let's get him loose in the pen. We'll send him back out. And if this guy, that's going back out doesn't get an out and we need Shohei, we can bring him in from the outfield. Like you said, Scott, he can run to the mound and get ready because he's warmed up previously. That's a lot going on to manage one player in a game, but Shohei's worth it, right? He's the best in the game. You got to do whatever you can to utilize his talent to the best possible, degree, so you can get that productivity you need.
Well, that's it too. You just said a mouthful there, Skip. He did. That's a lot. As if baseball wasn't complicated enough. You said 1,000 things. You might have just doubled that number to 2,000 things. So let me put you in a hypothetical, because that's one of the things I love about having you on the show. If you were in that situation, I'm going to hit you with this question. I'm not hitting Dave Roberts with this. I'm hitting you with it. How do you manage that situation?
Yeah, you have to, pick your spots, right? As a manager, managing a big league game, much less the postseason, you probably have 50 thoughts in your head every few seconds, because there's so many things you can do. It's just, you have to, think about every possible scenario coming up for the next few innings. You're not managing the inning you're playing. You're managing the inning that's going to be played 2 innings from now. You're right. You got to set up everything for that. I think that, the inning you're in, you've managed that 2 innings ago, right? You've made all your thought processes. You've thought about everything to get to this inning. And then you're kind of always ahead of the game. If I can use that word, it sounds like, you got to be locked in the moment, but not as a manager in the big leagues. You have to know, who's coming up 2 innings from now. Okay. Is our relievers ready? Right. You have all this information in front of you. You try to line up the best reliever for the best player, for the best hitters that might be coming up, that match up the best to the hitters that are coming up 2 innings away. And you got to understand that you have who you have and who's been, pitching well and all of that. So managing a bullpen during the game is the most important thing for a major league manager. And Dave Roberts is going to have his hands full with Shohei if they put him in the field and try to get him loose and try to do all of this stuff all at the same time. That's just another, 50 thoughts that are going to be in his head that he has to worry about during the game. But he's been doing it for a long time. He'll be able to handle it. And I'm sure Shohei, as long as he's, on board with what they talk about, I'm sure they'll have tons of conversations making sure that Shohei's comfortable, and they'll have it all mapped out and say, hey, we're not going to use you if you don't have the time to warm up properly and stuff like that, because that's a risk in and of itself. So, it goes fast. You got to think fast. You got to talk fast. You got to, be in with your hitting coach and your pitching coach and bench coach and make sure everything's a well-oiled machine and make the right decisions.
Well, Skip, you're talking to a guy from Motor City, so you're trying to tell me as a skipper, your wheels are always turning, right?
That's right. You got to keep them oiled up. And the way to oil them up is to have, great conversations before game, the week going into a series, all of those things. That's your oil, right? Your ability to be able to, really collaborate with the rest of the organization and the players to make the best decisions possible. And making baseball decisions is one of the most impossible things, because we all know baseball is a game of failure. So whatever decision you make, whomever you send up there to pinch hit, whomever you send out there to try and get outs, baseball is a game of failure. So they're going to fail a lot of the time. If you're picking a pinch hitter to go out there and pinch hit, if he's a 300 hitter off the bench as a pinch hitter, once you send him into the game and this is his first at bat of the game against a really good reliever, you can expect the productivity to go down to maybe expect more like a 250 hitter. So think about that. I'm sending a guy up to the plate that I know is probably going to succeed 25% of the time. Right. So that means my decision is going to look bad 75% of the time. So it's really, an interesting dynamic in baseball when you're trying to make decisions, because baseball is a game of failure.
Yeah, well, like I said, wheels are turning are favorite words in my vocabulary. So before we move on to Fernando Valenzuela, I'm going to ask you this. This is something that really intrigued me now that you brought that up. You do your pitching lessons at Sage Ranch. I know. How is that coming along?
It's coming along great. I've been staying pretty busy. Right now I'm not actually on Sage Ranch. I'm at several different sites within an hour of my place. Okay. But the plan is to build up a building and be able to stay at home and do what I love.
Are you able to promote our shows with those people to let them know that as we continue?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been kind of spreading the word and I'll get it out on social media a little bit more, but I think people would love to tune in.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to build here. We're doing well, but I can't wait to see all the long-term results that we're doing. So since baseball is a game of failure, and we know that it is, that's why anybody that thinks it's boring, to me, sorry, you better rethink that, because there's a lot more chess involved in most other sports that are more action-packed. As much as I know you would probably love to manage again in the big leagues and all these other things, don't you find yourself at more peace that you're doing what we're doing here on these shows, as well as that, instead of having to deal with the daily pressures of the rigors of what you have to do on a daily basis, knowing you've been there, you've done that, you've managed, you're over 500 with the Mets, and you've done a lot of things and have been successful in this industry where you're able to sit back. Okay, if it doesn't happen again, I'm fine. But now I'm enjoying where I can speak my mind a lot more clearly.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that mode. I do miss it. That managing baseball is one of the greatest things that you could possibly do, as far as being a challenge and really having to be on top of your game. So I loved all of that about it, the challenge of it. It is good to relax from time to time and not have so much stress, but I do miss it. I'd love to do it again. It's just kind of a different lifestyle right now. So I'm just, grateful for whatever I can do to be part of this game and help out whomever I can. And, if some other opportunities arise, I would definitely take it. I've been offered kind of a pitching consultant / pitching coach job at a local college here. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of that. And, I'm excited about that opportunity. So it's baseball, and I love baseball, and I'll do whatever I can to stay in this game.
And you should. That's why I'm giving you the visibility I can to keep your name out there on a consistent basis. I've done this before with another guy by the name of John Bonamego. Look him up. There's a guy that I kept him active for about a year, and all of a sudden he's involved with special teams here at Tennessee. So this isn't precedent here for me to do it. In fact, I was texting my buddy Bo Crouch over the weekend, and it's worked out well. We're always going to keep you on this show to keep you in the national limelight to promote what you're doing. But I just thought I'd take this opportunity to mention that as well. But yeah, John Bonamego, who's, if you look him up, was with me for about a year and a half. He's a former assistant coach with the Detroit Lions, among other teams. And he was also part of the LA Rams Super Bowl team during the COVID year and all that. And pretty good. Cool. So, I always like to keep people like you guys involved so that people, hey, he's out there. And don't worry, Barry Bloom, everybody else knows about you. I just thought I'd incorporate that in. So with that said, let's go there and transition over to 1981. Don't know, I doubt Eric was alive back then, but with his history, mindset of everything, he almost feels like he is. Yeah, and Fernando Mania inspired a widespread pride and enthusiasm among Mexican and Mexican American fans, boosting the Latino representation in baseball. Get this, that year he had 8 shutouts and tied the MLB mark set by Russ Ford in 1910. Skip, I'm throwing some history at you. 1910. And Reb Russell in 1913. What are your thoughts about Fernando Mania? What do you remember about it?
Yeah, I definitely remember Fernando Mania. I think what our theme is these international players that are doing such great things with the Dodgers. And really, when I think I was about 6 or 7 years old, obviously a huge baseball fan, but I do remember the Fernando Mania, and I do remember it kind of being like the first. When you're such a young kid, he was the first big, international player of, when I started paying attention and really understanding baseball. And it really kind of opened my eyes to, Major League Baseball is more of a international sport than it is just a sport that's, here in the USA. So he had a huge impact on the international side of things, and really made teams start to prioritize more international players because they could come in and have such a big impact. Now, obviously, we had great international players over the years and in the history of baseball before him, but for my time and the way things have progressed internationally with the signings of those players, I think Fernando had a big thing to do with that. Especially coming from Mexico and being one of the first Mexican-born players to really have great success in the major leagues here. So, and the Dodgers have always done an amazing job at doing that. Now, first and foremost, the Dodgers are in LA. There's a great draw, for if you want to come from Japan and live in LA, that's kind of where those guys want to be most of the time. Where they had Hideo Nomo, those type players from there just really gravitate to LA because of the convenience of it all, right? If you're going to fly to Korea or Japan or whatever, you're probably going to stop in LA and then, jump over the puddle to those places. And then obviously you have Mexico right there and all of that and all those South American countries. It's just an easy place to get to. So I think that they recognize that, and they really tried to make their mark signing these international players, and they've done a great job over the years.
Well, you touched on some great things. Before I turn over to Eric, I will tell you this. I saw Korea take on the United States at Dodger Stadium. My only trip to Dodger Stadium in the Olympics. That was really pretty thrilling to see the Korean involvement there. And yes, Hideo Nomo, as we're going to get to. Eric obviously reminded me of his no-hitter. He's going to elaborate on that in a moment. But yeah, the Korea-United States dynamic, that was one of the big things I saw there at Dodger Stadium for sure. And let's not forget that one of my first big events covering as a sports writer was in 1981 and 1981 baseball winter meetings, and Tommy Lasorda and he's my first major interview, reminded me a lot about Fernando Mania, and what was a thrill to be around. Oh, here I am, a Detroit Tigers guy growing up, and all of a sudden I gravitated to the Dodgers like you wouldn't believe, because the way they treated me, between Lasorda, Al Campana, Steve Brenner, those people, the way they made me feel part of that organization as I sat with them over meeting after meeting, at meal after meal. It was just unbelievable being a 19-year-old guy like I was, just to be around that championship feeling. So, yeah, Hideo Nomo, I'll tell you, he's certainly a guy that Japanese people can feel pretty good about, too. All right, Eric, pick it up from there.
Well, actually, the story about how Valenzuela eventually became a Dodger is actually crazy in of itself. The Mike Brio, who was the scout that was sent over to scout, was actually not looking to get a pitcher. He was looking at a shortstop named Ali Yasconda. But eventually, what happened was he saw Valenzuela pitch, fall behind Yasconda fall behind 3-0, and then eventually Valenzuela struck him out, and that's when he forgot all about the shortstop and convinced the Dodgers to sign Valenzuela. Fernando Valenzuela is actually a lot bigger than baseball than most people realize, is because when Dodger Stadium was getting built in Chavez Ravine, people were, the Mexican community, people were actually forced out of their homes so Dodger Stadium could be built. Now, mind you, there was, the world was a little different back then. Laws weren't as stingent as they are now in terms of forcing people out of their houses. But that's just the way the world was at the time. So there was a rift between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Mexican community for a very long time, up until they signed Valenzuela. And magically, Valenzuela is you could argue, is single-handedly responsible for uniting the Mexican communities in California with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And when Valenzuela was pitching, that community would be going to the game in droves because, they viewed him as, one of their own. And that's how Fernando, and then obviously, who could forget Fernando Valenzuela and his famous screwball, which obviously was great in and of itself. But Valenzuela is a lot more of an icon to people of Mexican descent in California because of what he did, uniting that community with the Los Angeles Dodgers, given like the ugly history between the two sides prior to Valenzuela. But Valenzuela was like, it's just one of those events where you just had to be there to really understand like the magnitude of it. And, it's just, it's unbelievable, like what he did in a short period of time with the Dodgers in 1981, also eventually helping them win the World Series that season. Right. And it's just one of those deals where it was just one event one event during one season was truly bigger than baseball.
Yeah, no question about it. So amazing how you mentioned 1981 World Series as we transition to it, because he did play a key role in the 1981 World Series victory, starting Game 3 and pitching a complete game. Keep in mind, he won the Cy Young and Rookie of the Year, became the first player to win both in the same season. That's an accomplishment in its own right, Skip.
Yeah, absolutely right. To come in and do that as a rookie is an amazing feat, and then to go into the postseason and pitch a complete game, in Game 3, that's just something that's unheard of, to win a Cy Young and Rookie of the Year. Usually these players that have so much talent and they may win Rookie of the Year, they're just not ready. They're putting up good numbers for a major league player, great numbers for a rookie, but to be one of the top echelon of players in Major League Baseball doesn't happen very often. So that's such a feat in and of itself.
Yeah, it sure really is. Eric, some thoughts on that, since you kind of tipped it anyways.
I mean, that's hard to do as a rookie. I mean, it very rarely ever happens, just because, rookie, you got all this, you're not making any money yet. You're trying to kind of find your way in the big leagues, and eventually, because it's a lot harder to stay in the big leagues than it is to get called up to the big leagues. Because, you're trying to find your footing there and eventually stick on the roster, and then hopefully be able to expand your money a little bit. But, the fact that Valenzuela not only did that and won MVP and and won a Cy Young and a Rookie of the Year honor. That's pretty good. It's an amazing feat. It's just so very rarely ever happens. And who could forget the over the top windup that he had,
That's
which
true.
no one else could figure it out. That was the amazing thing about it. No one figured him out.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that one thing about Valenzuela is his Dodger career wasn't done. He proceeded to be a broadcaster with him until his recent passing. So
He did.
he was able to go ahead and broadcast. And I found this out to the Southern California Sports Broadcasters, which I am a member of, by the way. I like to stay in touch with my Southern California people because they're really class people. I've always had good relationships out there. And as time goes on, I want to continue my connection with them. They're just a good group of people. Rest in peace, by the way. I haven't mentioned this on this show before. Chris Roberts, who got me involved. He's the former UCLA broadcaster who passed away because of Parkinson's disease. But Chris will always be a special part of my life. And somebody I mentioned in my book as well. One other thing about Fernando before we go to a station break, he led the National League with 180 strikeouts and just 25 starts that year, 13-7, 2.48 earned run average in 1981. Those are pretty remarkable stats, Skip, for a guy in his first year.
Yeah, absolutely right. He went out there and he obviously didn't slip up very much. He had amazing starts for them, and I'm sure that Fernando Mania didn't add any less pressure. It probably added more. So, and then you add on the layer of representing a different country, because that's what he was doing, right? He was there pitching for Mexico. And in that season, and that's the reason this Fernando Mania took off anyway, because he was pitching for a country, not for a team, and that has to have added a ton of extra pressure. He handled it brilliantly and won a Cy Young and Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Here's the other thing about Fernando Valenzuela is, in 1981, yes, he was obviously a baseball conversation. He was the best pitcher in baseball that season. But he was more than just a baseball conversation. He was also a cultural conversation. He, given what he did for the Mexican community and also uniting both the Los Angeles Dodgers and that community after, I think at that point, over 30 plus year, there was a 30 plus year rift there, given what happened to that community when Dodger Stadium was being built. But yeah, he became he was a lot bigger than baseball, because he was also not just baseball, but culture as well.
Right. Excellent points. All right, we're going to go to a station break, and then we have a couple more topics to get to. Obviously, today's theme was the Dodgers, but how can it not be when you talk about all the news surrounding Shohei Ohtani and, of course, Fernando Valenzuela? I felt like I wanted to give Fernando his due because I know he recently passed away. But now when you think of the Dodgers in the postseason, again, 13 years in a row, Shohei, Fernando, this was a natural to consider doing a show like this, and I'm glad we're able to do that. We'll have a lot more things on Monday night, 108.6 baseball talk, but international talk. When you think of international baseball, you think about the Dodgers, and I haven't seen many teams really coming close to what the Dodgers are doing. Not that other ones aren't, but just at the moment. And again, we pay our due with Ichiro on Monday night when we compare him with Nolan Ryan's accomplishments. So, Candy, take it from there, please. Thank you.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us, and then turn on your notifications so you're notified whenever we have new programming going up. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to the program.
All right. Well, one of the things we're going to talk about on Monday night is we're going to go in more detail. Rob and Chris asked me an interesting question about the one player I'd like to interview. I'm going to go into more detail on Monday night. And I had no choice, Skip, because I was thinking about you all the time. And I mentioned Ty Cobb. Little teaser for Monday night, people. These guys hit me. Well, who would you want to interview the most? And I mentioned Ty Cobb's name. So I'll go into more details. Yeah, throw a little bit out there for Monday night. So that said, we'll stay on the international team with the Dodgers, but I got to have my no-hitter reference to the show, right? So aren't I consistent with that? So,
That's right.
So let's go back to July 14th, 1995. Ramon Martinez throws a no-hitter for the Dodgers. What are your thoughts about Ramon Martinez being another international flavor to this whole mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ramon, obviously the brother of Pedro, who kind of outshined him to a degree because, Pedro was just unbelievable. But I don't know that people realize how great of a pitcher Ramon Martinez was. I think he pitched for the Dodgers for like 10 years, probably 14 years in the big leagues. He won a bunch of games, right? I think he won like 123 games or something in the big leagues, which is not an easy thing to do. He's one of those 2,000 players with 10 years in the big leagues. Just a great pitcher. And like we've talked about before, you give people that have a lot of success, you give them 14 years, they're going to do something special at some point. Mm-hmm. And he was able to go out there for the Dodgers and throw a no-hitter. I think that's just an amazing feat. And, he was a great pitcher. I love to watch him pitch. When I was growing up, I loved watching both the Martinez brothers go out there and compete, and he got him a no-hitter and a great career.
Yeah, I sure did. I'm glad you brought this stuff up, Eric.
I mean, if you ask Pedro now who he thought it was going to be having all that success that, Pedro Martinez eventually had, he would tell you it was supposed to be Ramon. Obviously, we know what Pedro did, Hall of Fame career. I despised him when he was with the Red Sox. But it's he was one of those forgotten players of that time because the 2000s, baseball was in a great spot at that point during the 2000s. You had stars everywhere. You had a bunch of up and coming players at that point in time, like guys you're seeing now getting to the Hall of Fame were up and coming at that point in time. But Ramon, again, he made an all-star. He made an all-star team too in 1990. But
right.
Unfortunately, though, he's one of those forgotten players just because baseball is knee deep in stars at that point in time. So unfortunately, some solid players at that point, they're forgotten about. And I think Ramon Martinez, unfortunately, is one of them. But yeah, good for him with the no-hitter. But he had a solid career, nice long career, started for the Dodgers for a while. And, if you ask Pedro, Pedro would tell you that he was supposed to be the one doing what Pedro obviously did throughout his career. But, again, unfortunately he does get overlooked just because of the era that he played in, because at that point, I'm just going to name a few players that he was going up against, the guys like John Smoltz, Mark Mulder, Tim Hudson, also Mike Mussina at that point in time, Roger Clemens. He unfortunately was in an era where you had a bunch of great players during that period of time. And that, unfortunately he does get overshadowed, but he did have a very solid big league career.
Eric, I want you to repeat those names because that's a really impressive thing you brought up. You have John Smoltz, Mike Mussina, Mike Mulder. Who was the other one you mentioned? That's really impressive. Who were the
Roger Clemens?
Yeah, well, I'm telling you. You just said a mouthful, Skip. I want to build on this, okay? Roger Clemens, Mark Mulder, Mike Mussina, John Smoltz, and now you have him. What are your thoughts when Eric can make a comparison like that?
Also, Barry Zito.
There you go.
I mean, there were tons of pitchers in that era that just were off the charts. You had the starting staff with the Braves at that time, right? I mean, that was just outrageous. You had Glavine and Maddox and Smoltzy, and then even the guys, Steve Avery and those guys. I mean, just unbelievable staff. And then that's just one team, right? There's just a plethora of teams that had great staffs back then. It was almost like a little bit of a golden age of pitching in the major leagues during the time of Ramon Martinez was pitching, and he did get a little overshadowed. There were just great, outstanding pitchers everywhere. So it was a great time to grow up for me personally, watching pitching, because you had so many different guys that could do so many different things. You had Tom Glavine, who could just, masterful change up, really used command, lefty, crafty lefty. Then you had Maddox, who's kind of a crafty righty, worked on movement and location. Then you had Clemens, who was just overpowering guys with the fastball and the split finger. You had Barry Zito with the huge curveball. It was just an amazing. Tim Hudson, super sinker, young kid out of Auburn, throwing unbelievable sinkers. It's just so fun to watch pitching back in the day. It has changed totally. It feels like everybody that goes out there and pitches today is the same guy, right? We're trying to throw as hard as we can. We're going to throw our breaking balls real hard. Back then, it was like masterful the way these guys went out there and navigated lineups with different stuff. So you got to see such a different look all the time. It had to make it harder on the hitters to go out there on a nightly basis and face guys that had such different stuff. Now everybody has great stuff, but they're kind of all the same. You're kind of going out there and you're facing the same guy every night. Back then it was like, oh, we got to face Barry Zito, and then we got to face, Roger Clemens and then Tim Hudson. I mean, it was just a great time to be able to learn pitching and watch pitching growing up when all those guys were there.
Amazingly enough, what you just said is unbelievable, Skip. And I'll tell you why. You talk about Frank Tanana. That's when you can appreciate a guy like him, because of what you just talked about. And another thing that's also interesting about what both of you guys have mentioned is that's why you have more Tommy John surgery, because today's pitchers are not as crafty, and they're so busy about throwing it as hard as they can, 100 miles an hour. We won't get into that today, but it's just something that we're able to connect. I appreciate your participation in the chat room, Joshua Dora. Thank you very much. But nevertheless, that's what you talk about, Frank Tanana, and every one of these names that have been mentioned all go out there and are a plethora of what we're talking about. I know plethora is one of Candy's favorite words, but it's true. It's a good word, because you have to talk about, everybody's so busy trying to understand why are there so many Tommy John. All you have to do is look at the fact that you got to be smart. You don't have to overpower people. And I don't have the answers. I'm not Dr. Frank Jobe, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize when you throw 100 miles an hour consistent, you're going to put so much pressure on the arm, and that's what leads you out for a long time.
Well, I will say though, there are still pitchers today who are rebelling against the notion that you have to be, Randy Johnson overpowering. Shota Amanaga with the Cubs. He's going to get you with the slow. He's kind of like a Jamie Moyer-like pitcher. Although I will say though, back in the day, Jamie Moyer was frustrating to go against, because he threw it so slow that you were thinking that thing was going to end up on another street, but instead you're whiffing at wind. And Amanaga, when Kyle Hendrick was in his prime, not really now, but when Kyle Hendrick was in his prime with the Cubs, he was another one of those guys who rebelled against the notion that you had to be overpowering. He was not overpowering. He would get you with his off speed stuff, specifically his changeup. And he had a lot of success, and he was a big reason why the Cubs won the World Series and sustained success for a little while. Also, so there are pitchers out there who are rebelling against that notion, and also Kodai Senga prior to this year, another one of those guys, not overpowering, but his stuff can move though. His stuff moves, and so and also another guy like Brayan Bello with the Red Sox, not overpowering, but again, he rebels against the notion that you have to be overpowering. He can get you more with off-speed stuff as well. So there are plenty of guys out there who maybe have, middle of the road fastballs. However, their bread and butter is making you look stupid when they throw the ball super slow, and you're turning around and heading back to grab your seat on the bench.
All right, let's go to a few of Joshua Dora's comments. I think they're within the realm of mentioning on the air, and I think, and that he says, I hope they are, and that's why I'm going to get to them, Joshua. So give me about a second and a half to refer to them. So Mick, we're going to have a little fun with this. This is what we can do when we have the Saturday show. We have a little bit more latitude. So Mick, this one's directed at what type of golf clubs do you have? I think that's pretty good. I actually like these kind of Joshua Dora. Maybe at some point, searching for America, he'll figure this stuff out. But he did with this question. I like this. What kind of golf clubs do you use?
Yeah, I use Titleist. I love to
Oh, you
play
like
golf,
Titleist.
and I use Titleist. I'll use a Callaway golf ball every now and again, but I mostly stick with Titleist. I think that I wish that I was related to Uncle Eli, who started Callaway Golf, but no, I obviously the Callaway name that always gets kind of intertwined with golf, so it's always kind of been a fun thing.
Josh Adore, maybe there's hope for you after all. I don't know. I'll have to see a steady body of work to go ahead and do that. I think Dora's getting a little smarter with the food questions, which we don't really care for. The only time I'll ever allow those is if I'm a guest on on Rob and Chris's show, then they're producing it. Then I don't care if you talk food because they talk about it all the time anyway. So that's permissible there. I dodge food questions on this because I don't think it's that big a deal. All right, so Eric, this one's directed at. How do you know all this stuff? Josh, haven't you watched enough of this kid? This kid, boy wonder. He's baseball, man. He's my young Mr. Baseball. I'm developing this guy into something.
Years upon years of watching baseball and seeing it and going to the park and literally and also family. So there's that. It's just years of baseball.
Yeah, so there you go, Joshua Odor. Every time you come on a baseball show, let me tell you one thing about Eric. And that's one thing, Skip, and I love having him. You have a young guy that acts like a 50, 60-year-old that knows that much. And that's what makes him so impressive. My goal right now, honestly, is to get Eric in a major league press box, whether it's spring training or whether it's to the regular season. I have every intention of putting him on bringing him on with South Florida Tribune credentialing system, and I will do that at some point once I'm able to steadily work him in so that he can learn from him. But yeah, I can tell you right now, Eric, that is my plan. It's Joshua. I don't like baseball, but I covered games the last time the Marlins won a World Series. Covered. Yeah, well, that's true. Though. Let's not kid yourself. The Marlins have won a couple World Series. Say what you want about the organization, but I did mention this on last night's show with Chris, Anthony, Savino, and Rob, that it doesn't matter if you win a division title or not. That has nothing to do with it. Get in a darn tournament, then you can win. And that's what the Miami Marlins have done.
Yep.
So, Josh, that's a really good point for somebody not really big on baseball. Maybe there's hope for you after all outside of hockey, but still. But the reality is, Skip, in all fairness, okay, get in a cotton picking playoffs. That's what you got to do. You get in the playoffs and anything can happen. Yep. You get hot at the right time. You know this.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of wild card teams have won, a title. I was fortunate enough to be part of the Angels 2002 team that we got in as a wild card, and we ended up winning the World Series. It's really comes down to how you're playing at the end of the year, and that's what it'll always come down to. It doesn't matter, how you played for 6 or 7 months. It matters on how you play in September. Are you hot going into the playoffs? Excuse me. Are you healthy going into the playoffs is a huge thing. And then are your players, of the sort that are going to go out there and play the game the right way, where you can really, make a sustained run deep into the playoffs and give yourself a chance to win a World Series. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and we'll stay with Joshua Doors for a moment right now, because with all due respect, since this is based in South Florida, Florida Panthers are the only pro team in South Florida that is worth anything. Other franchises are in shambles right now. It's true. I mean, we do these shows in the Southern Florida area, so I don't mind mentioning those references as well.
Look at the Chicago teams too. Every city has a time where all their teams are going through it. I mean, Chicago exactly hasn't been so hot either prior to the Cubs going to the postseason this year. Chicago teams have been awful, and some of them are still awful.
Well, Detroit teams go in slumps as well, but when you look at the overall totality of the championships over a long period of time, it's a different animal. But I can see where this guy's coming from. And again, the one thing I will say about the Saturday show is I know we're focused on baseball. I don't mind going off a little bit on this show because we have enough baseball topics where we want to make sure Skip can talk about other sports as well, because every now and then he'll make an appearance on the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night. But it's okay to have a little bit of fun on Saturday morning, which I have zero problem with. Hey, listen, later on today, Candy and I will be covering the Florida Gators, the Miami Hurricanes, which I think is a great game tonight. Looking forward to doing it. We'll see how it all plays out. Josh Adora, one of your better acts this morning. Keep it up. That's how you maintain relevant, okay, on this platform. If you want to do it, just you might have to kind of watch this one a few times and you'll know what you're doing right instead of what you're always doing wrong. Yes, we know about Matthew Tkachuk being on College Game Day. That's fine. I probably don't know when I'm going to have a chance to see it anyways, because after I get done here, I'm going to get ready for a busy night. Last week, though, Skip, I will tell you this. University of South Florida and the Miami Hurricanes, I decided to take a different approach about what my post-game activity was. I had a chance to ask Alex Golish of USF some important questions, and we got a lot of views on that. Candy worked on the home side, and it turned out to be a good balance between the two. So there's no question about that. So, well, final topic of the day. I'm so used to night, but I love the Saturday show, Skip. How about you and Eric? But I really enjoy doing that. But yeah, I know it was a long game last week in Joshua George. Thank God you only attended. You have to worry about the before and after, but for the pregame and the postgame. Otherwise, you'll understand what a long game was when you have to do it all. But I can appreciate where you're coming from. But no, I enjoy doing this. It keeps me going here. I make no secret I'm dealing with the onset of Alzheimer's disease. But the one thing I can do to stall this thing from getting worse is by being as active as I am. That's why I enjoy the amount of things I'm doing. The more active I am with podcasts, broadcasts, whatever you want to call them these days, going to games, the longer I have a chance to stick this thing out and keep it working, and we're trending in the right direction. The last I looked, we had over like 711,000 paid views. Our goal is 1 million by the end of the year. And as long as I continue to go ahead and add incredible quality shows, I see no reason why we can't get that and exceed it to do the things we're doing. Adding guys like Mickey Callaway help, and of course, great guests like Barry Bloom, and the list goes on and on. So this is what motivates me, drives me. I enjoy the work in the field as well as I do on the air, and that's what drives me as hard as I can. And when I have guys like you on, of course, Trent Clark will be on next week as well. Final topic of the morning, I should say, is listen, let's not kid ourselves. We started the show with Shohei Ohtani, and we'll end it that way. Get this. He makes leadoff history. He is the first starting pitcher since 1900 to hit a leadoff triple. He took the mound and also struck out the leadoff hitter. Now, Skip, we could come up with every imaginable number with Ohtani, but come on, really? Seriously, really? I had to get those in, by the way, one time. Anyhow, leading off with a triple. We're not talking single, double. We're talking about a triple. I see leadoff home run, and then he strikes somebody out. Come on, help me here, Skip.
You know, I'm sure there's plenty. We could pull up plenty of stats. You know, these kind of stats that Shohei has done that nobody else has done, because he's that two-way, sensation that we all get the privilege of, living through and getting to see this phenomenal player during his career. But that's pretty impressive, right? He can run, he can throw, and he can hit. So, and you get them all in that, that one stat. The guy can hit, he can hit a triple, he's going to run around the bases to all the way to third and just be able to fly doing it. And he's just a supreme athlete, and he can go out there and strike a guy out, right? I mean, what an unbelievable talent. It's such a cool stat. It seems like, oh, that's kind of a weird stat to bring up, but to me, it speaks to his ability to be able to do the three most important things in baseball, and that's hit, throw, and run. And if you can do those things, you got a chance in baseball, and he just proves it with that one simple stat, that one simple record that nobody else has been able to do.
Oh, don't worry. I told you. This is just the beginning. Next Saturday, I'm going to come up with a few more. But I had to tie Fernando in with this because I really do believe in my mind that when you approach postseason baseball, that you want to talk about the international flavor that allows me to tie them both together. But yeah, even Babe Ruth couldn't even do this. Babe Ruth did an awful lot of things, but come on, give me a leadoff triple and a leadoff. That's unbelievable. I mean, but there'll be more off the wall Ohtani stats in future shows. Eric, some thoughts about this? We'll go to one station, our final station break, as we get ready to wrap this broadcast up. Go ahead, Eric.
I mean, hitting a triple is harder than hitting a home run. Let's be honest, because you gotta plant that. You gotta hit that ball just right on the right part of the ballpark for you to go all the way to third base. I know here in Milwaukee, American Family Field, particularly in right field, is a big triples alley. Yankee Stadium, if you get in between the outfielders out in center field, you can hit a triple there. But either way, that's hard. especially with how they align fielders now. There's no such thing as playing them straight up anymore. You can align them in a certain way where you can take away an extra base hit, set up for a double play, or try and not give up that run. It's become hitting a triple I think you could probably make the argument that hitting a triple has never been harder in baseball now, given all the advanced facts and stats that teams receive now on how to prevent that from happening, at least theoretically, because you hit that ball just right and the fielder misplays it, that's going to be a problem. But Ohtani, what hasn't he done? I think we're still trying to figure that out, because he's literally done everything you can possibly do out on a baseball field, everything from pitching to hitting, and now possibly he'll be playing. He'll actually be a defender out in the outfield in the postseason if the Dodgers let him do it. But yeah, it's truly amazing what he's doing. I think by the time it's all said and done, though, I think I'm going to call it right now. I think he can be the next unanimous Hall of Famer, right next to Mariano Rivera.
Really, I love it. Well, here, let me throw another couple things out. Yeah, I don't know if you were down here. Well, you were with the Angels then, Skip. But I remember when the Angels came to Miami, I talked to Don Mattingly about Ohtani. We got at that time, I don't know what the numbers are now. Maybe Candy comes up with them now, or maybe Monday night. But I ended up applying for during the middle of the week. And Don Mattingly talked on, we got over 1,800 views on Don Mattingly talking about Shohei Ohtani back then. I don't know if you were there for that. But Don Mattingly commenting on Shohei Ohtani was just unbelievable. And I like the fact that you made that Mariano Rivera reference, because I wouldn't be surprised at the rate he's going. And you know what? If you get a chance, Skip, okay, or hopefully you guys will, with the Barry Bloom, he talks about guys that are baffling why they should have gotten 100%. There was when I talk about what Barry and I talked about on Thursday night, we left no stones unturned when it came to the importance of Hall of Fame and who should be in, who shouldn't be in. And I think if you're a pure baseball fan, please go out there and watch that interview I did with Barry Bloom, one of the legendary sports writers of all time. He wasn't a one-trick pony. Yes, he's done a lot of baseball, but he's done everything. Anybody that can't learn from Barry Bloom, well, it's too bad, because he knows a lot. But Mariano Rivera, next 100%, there should be. I still think Ichiro should be, and Derek Jeter, why he's not is anybody's guess why. But I'm not going in there on that.
I mean, if Ohtani is not the next unanimous Hall of Famer, I'm going to ask that. I'm going to hopefully figure out who that writer is and ask him to take a drug test.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good point, Eric. And I think that's one of those things. What Barry and I listen, over the last few weeks, I've had a lot of people like Tom Gage, who's one of my close friends, has known me since '81, since I was a kid, and he even says, the voting is it's just the way that some of these guys think. If they think they're going to get in, they're going to get somebody else. It's something you have to watch. I don't want to sit here and divulge what that interview was like, because Barry sheds a lot of very interesting insights about the Hall of Fame voting process, and it's a cannot watch episode, because Barry gets into more things that I've never had with a lot of other writers, but other writers bring different things to what these shows are all about. So great show today. I really have. And the one thing I love about our Saturday broadcast, they're more laid back. We talk about fewer topics, but we're able to go in more depth. And when Trent Clark comes on, we're certainly going to have more fun with that as well. A lot of great topics lined up for Monday night. So, but meanwhile, Skip and Eric, you guys do a great job. But one thing about these shows is when you catch them on Saturdays, the weekend, they'll pick up steam late as the week goes on, because let's face it, everybody's in their weekend mode. They're watching football. This Saturday show has been a great addition to what we're doing here on the South Florida Tribune Media Network, without a doubt. And we appreciate all the participation that we get in the chat room now. And then, of course, the comments that subsequently come on later on as well. So, Skip, any closing thoughts about what you're going to be doing this weekend? We got a date Monday night, obviously. We're going to have a lot more things involved. So what are you doing this weekend, Skip?
No, I'll see you this week. This Monday night, I'm going to relax this weekend and enjoy myself, and then get back to lessons starting Monday night, and then I'll be on your show Monday evening. So I'm ready to relax for a couple of days here.
Hey, listen, tomorrow after I get done with the Canes and Gators, I'm going to probably be sleeping until 12, 1 o'clock, put some NFL stuff up on Action, then we'll go from there. But yeah, it'll be good. I've enjoyed the work weekend, the things we've gotten accomplished. But the Monday night show is taken off big time. And of course, the Saturday show is it's been a lot of fun too with you and Eric, and eventually Trent on here. Eric, what are you going to be doing this weekend before we wrap it up? Although we have a station break coming up. Go ahead.
Well, probably clean up my place a little bit. Probably relax and hopefully catch some baseball this evening. Definitely want to get my hair cut, and yeah, so busy weekend all around.
All right, Candy, one more station break before we wrap it up. Go ahead, take it away, Can.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Mad Mouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has evolved. You got to get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941, or if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. One last preview. Starting on Wednesday night at 8 p.m., we are going to debut a new series, and we're going to be talking to 1994 U.S. Olympic bobsledder who is going to talk about CTE. You know, we've associated CTE a lot with football. We don't talk about it in some of the other sports. So we're going to be talking to a former U.S. Olympic bobsledder, and he's going to be talking about the effects, and he does have, there's a sad story involved, but there's also a good story. We're trying to raise money because hyperbaric chambers actually help people that have CTE. So we're trying to raise money so that we can give free treatment to people. So tune in Wednesday night, 8 p.m., the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Back to you, Scott.
Thanks. And thanks, Rob, for chiming in. We're going to be talking more about Ty Cobb on Monday night. I want you to be more the aggressor on that one, Rob, about how you managed to pin me down on that question. That's definitely worth talking. And I'm going to incorporate a couple Ty Cobb nuggets in there. Skip is definitely anxious to hear that one.
Yes,
well, you and Chris pinned me on that one. It's certainly worth talking about Monday night. But meanwhile, with that said, Josh Fedora, good work in the chat room. I hope that you don't take these compliments to your head and that you build on it a little bit. You were more on point today. That's why I gave you a little bit more verbal time than I normally do, because you showed a marked improvement. Don't get complacent with that. You need to build on it and stay on sports topics. I don't mind food once in a while, but stay on sports topics. And if you do that, you'll be in good standing with the company. But meanwhile, Skip, great job this morning. Eric as well. And of course, Trent, we're looking forward to seeing him from time to time on Saturday as well. And we'll be mixing it up with a lot of things as well. So on behalf of my manager and skipper, Mickey Callaway, who I know is always good for some great insight, and Eric Katz, a boy wonder who's going to be out doing some unbelievable things. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us. One last thing before we go, Eric, let everybody know how they get a hold of you. Eric? Well, you're going to try.
You can follow me on my X account. All things. What?
Eric? Popping out.
What?
Oh, let everybody know how to get a hold of you real quickly.
Yeah, you can follow me on my X account at Sports Team News, where I'm tweeting all things baseball, or you can follow me on my blog at BellaSports.com, where I write about all things baseball. And if you think I don't like your team, I probably don't.
So you ought to trademark that. Okay, with that said, that does it for us this morning. On behalf of my incredible crew, Mickey and Eric, my name is Scott. Thanks for joining us. See you Monday night. Looking forward to a packed show, as we always do on Monday. Today it was just about narrowing it down and getting to what we need to do. Different show Monday night as we are Saturday, but they both offer different types of insights and points of view. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. See you Monday night. Bye now.